Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Imagine this. You've spent the last 6 months in what feels like a never-ending episode of a hospital drama after surviving a devastating car accident that took your family from you. After all the hospital beds and rehab exercises that even the toughest person would struggle with, you're finally sent home. But now, just thinking about getting into a car makes your heart race, as if your brain has decided to put on a horror movie marathon with all the worst moments on repeat. Even the sound of a car passing by feels like someone's holding a live grenade over your head. That's PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. It's like your brain has decided to keep replaying that traumatic event over and over, like it's stuck on a loop. PTSD doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It kicks in after you've been through something truly awful. Any little reminder of that event, a sound, a smell, or even a sight, can trigger a reaction that makes you feel like you're right back in that terrifying moment. Your heart races, you start sweating, and sometimes it feels like you might faint. One minute you're just going about your day, and the next, you're caught in a flashback or nightmare that feels like you're starring in your own personal horror movie. Bipolar disorder. Have you ever been on a roller coaster? The kind that whips you around so fast you're left breathless and wondering why you thought this was a good idea? That's a bit like what it feels like to have bipolar disorder, except this ride isn't fun. It's like having two completely different people living inside your head. The first is the manic phase. This is when you feel like you've just won the lottery and had a double shot of espresso. You're full of energy, super happy, and ready to take on anything, even if it's a bit too much for you. But just when you think you've got it all figured out, the depressive phase hits, and it's like someone dumped a bucket of ice water on you. Suddenly, everything seems pointless, and you feel grumpy, down, and convinced that nothing matters. These mood swings can happen out of nowhere, and sometimes they come with a side of irritability or even aggression. Scientists have found that bipolar disorder is linked to genetics, brain chemistry, and life experiences, and it affects millions of people around the world. It's not something you can just snap out of or treat like a cold. It's a serious condition that needs proper care. Schizophrenia. Remember when you were a kid and had an imaginary friend? Someone only you could see and talk to? For most people, that friend faded away as they grew up. But for someone with schizophrenia, that imaginary friend is still very much real. They can see, hear, or talk to that person, just like anyone else. Schizophrenia isn't just about imaginary friends, though. It comes with vivid delusions, where someone might believe they're a secret agent on a mission to save the world. It's like living in a world where reality keeps shifting, and it's hard to know what's real and what's not. Schizophrenia can feel like your mind is a radio that keeps changing stations. One minute, you're in the real world, and the next, you're somewhere else entirely. It's a challenging condition that affects about 1 in every 300 people. There's no cure, but with early diagnosis, therapy, and medication, people with schizophrenia can manage their symptoms and improve their quality of life. Depressive disorder. If you've ever had one of those days where everything seems gray and nothing seems to go right, you might have a tiny glimpse into what living with depression feels like. But depression isn't just about feeling sad for a little while. It's like living in a world where the colors have all been drained away. Every day feels like you're dragging yourself through a terrible Monday that never ends. During a depressive episode, it's like someone sucked all the joy out of your life. You lose interest in everything you used to love. Your favorite foods, your hobbies, even spending time with your friends. Depression can make you want to sleep all day or keep you awake all night. It can make you eat everything in sight or lose your appetite entirely. And your energy? It's like you're moving through quicksand. Depression affects around 280 million people worldwide, and many don't even realize they have it. But if you're feeling down more often than not, it might be time to talk to someone who can help you find ways to cope. Anxiety disorder. Anxiety is like that constant feeling you get before you're about to do something really scary, but instead of going away, it just sticks around. It's like your brain is convinced that there's a grizzly bear chasing you, even when you're just sitting at home. Your heart races, your palms get sweaty, and it feels like your stomach is doing flips. A little bit of anxiety can be helpful. It keeps you on your toes and helps you stay alert. But when anxiety starts to interfere with your everyday life, it can become a real problem. It's like your brain is stuck in overdrive, making you worry about things that haven't even happened yet, or replaying past mistakes over and over. Anxiety disorders affect around 301 million people worldwide, but the good news is that with the right therapy and techniques, you can learn to manage it and live a full, happy life. Eating disorder. An eating disorder is like having a bully inside your head that tells you something's wrong with your body, even when there isn't. It's like your brain has developed an unhealthy relationship with food, treating it like an enemy rather than a source of nourishment. Some people with an eating disorder might think they need to be thinner, even if they're already very skinny, and they might start restricting their food intake in dangerous ways. Others might swing to the opposite extreme, binge eating large amounts of food in one go, and then feel so guilty that they try to get rid of it by forcing themselves to throw up. It's like having a friend who constantly encourages you to make bad choices, and then leaves you to deal with the fallout. Eating disorders affect millions of people, but with the right support and treatment, it's possible to develop a healthier relationship with food and body image. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, ADHD. Having ADHD is like being at a circus where there's always something exciting happening, but focusing on just one thing is almost impossible. Your brain is like a hyperactive ringmaster, constantly jumping from one thing to the next without giving you a chance to catch your breath. If you have ADHD, paying attention, staying organized, and controlling impulses can feel like a huge challenge. It's like your brain is a kid in a candy store with an unlimited allowance. There are so many possibilities, and you want to explore them all at once. ADHD affects millions of children, teens, and adults around the world, and it comes in different forms. Some people struggle to focus, others find it hard to sit still, and some experience a mix of both. Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, OCD. OCD is like having a very strict, overbearing parent living inside your head, constantly telling you to clean, check, and organize everything. But instead of just rolling your eyes and ignoring it, you feel like you have to follow these commands. OCD makes you have thoughts or fears that just won't go away. And to ease the anxiety, you develop compulsions, like washing your hands over and over, or checking to make sure the door is locked multiple times. It's like having a mental itch you can't scratch, no matter how hard you try. OCD affects millions of people, but with therapy, it's possible to learn how to manage the symptoms and reduce the anxiety. Autism Spectrum Disorder, ASD. Imagine you're at a party where everyone's laughing and having a great time, but you can't quite understand the joke. That's what life can feel like for someone with autism spectrum disorder. It's like their brain is running on a different operating system, making social interactions and communication more challenging. People with ASD might struggle with making eye contact or understanding social cues, but they might also have amazing talents and intense interests in specific areas. Autism is a spectrum, meaning it affects everyone differently, but with the right support, people with ASD can thrive. Sleep disorder. Imagine you're exhausted, but no matter how hard you try, you just can't fall asleep. That's what insomnia feels like. It's like your brain is throwing a party and forgot to invite your body. On the other hand, some people have narcolepsy, where they can't stop falling asleep, even in the middle of the day. Then there's sleep apnea, where your breathing stops during sleep, causing loud snoring and potential health risks. Sleep disorders can make life challenging, but there are treatments that can help you get the rest you need. Paranoia. Paranoia is like having a detective in your head who's convinced that everyone around you is out to get you. Even when there's no reason to be suspicious, a person with paranoia feels constantly threatened. It's like living in a world where everyone is a potential enemy, and trust is nearly impossible to find. This can lead to arguments, defensiveness, and a lot of stress. Dyslexia. It's like your brain is on a different learning adventure, and it takes extra time and help to find the right path. Dyslexia affects the part of your brain that processes language, making it harder to learn how to read, write, or spell. To a person with dyslexia, words and numbers might look like a jumbled mess, making reading and writing challenging and slow. For example, if someone with dyslexia is trying to follow a recipe, instead of reading "add 2 spoons of sugar," they might see "add 2 soonsp slat." Writing down thoughts or even copying a text can be an uphill battle filled with spelling errors and frustration. But it's important to remember that dyslexia isn't about intelligence. People with dyslexia are just as smart as anyone else. They simply learn differently. Fortunately, there are many tools and strategies to help, like phonetic programs that break words into sounds, audiobooks, and speech-to-text software. With the right support, people with dyslexia can thrive in school and beyond.